My name is Gene Tsudik. I'm a professor of computer science here at the University of California, Irvine, for the last 25 years. And my research specialty is computer security, applied cryptography, privacy, etc.
The documentary we are making is mostly about cryptography facing the quantum computing threat, if we want to call it. I will start from a general opinion about the situation at the moment.
I believe the danger is real. I think the preparation for the eventual downfall of some of the main, especially public key cryptographic techniques, is coming. The big question is when. I do not think the sky is falling right now. I do think that in a matter of 5 to 10 years, we will have to confront it head on, but not just yet.
So you expect 5-10 years? That is like your range of expectation?
Right. If we were to freeze everything we do today and just keep it the same, right, and like keep the same key sizes, keep the same cryptographic techniques, then 5 to 10 years from now, I suspect they will be breakable.
Which is not that long.
It's not that long. But keep in mind that a lot of cryptography is used for short term. Meaning that you and I communicate for some reason, and all we care about is that things are secret for a few months, maybe for a day, maybe for a year, but not for 10 years. There are definitely communications and information that has to be secured, whether it's by signatures or by encryption or both, for longer than that. That's where we have a problem, right? If we want to, let's say, preserve secrecy of something today, for the next 20 years, we have to be mindful of that very real danger in what I believe to be 5 to 10 years from now.
Collect now, decrypt later sort of attacks. That's what they...
That's exactly what I fear, is that some communicationists think about like government, various secrets that essentially do not expire. Right, some secrets just expire. They're no longer interesting 5 years from now, 1 year from now. But there are secrets that never expire.
Yes, but at the same time, we also know that most of the critical infrastructures today, the financial systems, many things rely on the current encryption schemes.
Right.
The whole internet, by the way, also. So, I mean, the collect now and decrypt later is an attack. But if in 5 years, most of these infrastructures and communications, real time, also, you know, air traffic, by the way, can be under attack or can be decrypted.
Right. Well, I mean, there are different concerns that one should have in mind. You mentioned air traffic control, right? For example, with that, it's less of an issue of secrecy and more of an issue of integrity or authenticity. Authenticity. Security is a general umbrella term for everything, but there's authenticity and integrity, meaning that when an air traffic control sends a message to the plane, we don't so much care, I think, in general about the secrecy of that message, but we care that nobody modifies that message. Nobody can come up with a fraudulent message. Do you see what I'm saying? That the origin of the message is air traffic control and not some guy in North Korea, you know. So that's integrity and authenticity. Those things tend to be short term. So I wouldn't worry about collect today, decrypt later, because that's not relevant. Right. With a bank, let's say you use your browser or your app to open a session with your bank, and you deposit money or you withdraw or you move money between accounts. Again, here there is an issue of integrity and authenticity. You want to be sure to talk to the bank and not some other entity that steals your credentials. You want the bank to be sure that it's talking to you. Right. And all the packets, all the little packets that come from your phone or your laptop are really coming from you and not somewhere else. And secrecy is important because you don't want everybody to know what you're doing, you know, what kind of financial transactions you're doing at the moment. But 5 years from now, I would have to ask, who cares?
Well, no, I am
not in that case. Yeah. But there are many examples where you have confidential communication. Let's say today we have a lot of therapy online. In fact, today AI chatbots become sort of therapists. And let's say you or I are clients of those therapists, and we maintain a conversation online and discuss very personal, very deeply personal things. Well, in that case, collect and decrypt 10 years from now works, because you see, those deeply personal things that you spoke about with your therapist are still as sensitive 10 years from now as they are today. That's where I would worry. If it's some kind of two companies negotiating a deal, okay, or two law firms negotiating a settlement that is supposed to be confidential and confidential for as long as possible, again, we have a problem, right, with collect now, decrypt later.
Right. No, definitely. That's a big problem. Most of the cryptography schemes today rely on the public key encryption and also the signatures. So also when we were talking about verifying the identities in this kind of handshake communication, that's also going to be under threat in a way, because you can falsify an identity since everything pretty much rely on these public key asymmetric schemes of encryption.
The problem, in my opinion, again, I'm just one person and I am not a true cryptographer. I'm more of applied crypto person, if anything, is that the problem is not as dire with signatures. There is a problem, but quantum poses much more danger to secrecy than it does to integrity and authentication. And my reasoning is that a lot of times, let's say I get a statement from you that is signed by you with a public key technology that is used today. All I generally care about is that I had that statement in my possession before the crypto system, before that cryptography was broken. So do you see what I mean? Yes, you know, if whatever you're using to sign a document is broken 5 years from now, and somebody could come up with fraudulent or fake signatures, indistinguishable from the original, from the genuine signatures, it is a problem. But if I had all your signatures that you produced for me, let's say I'm a bank or a lawyer, you had produced a number of signed documents for me, and I had them in my possessions. You see, I kind of escrowed or sequestered in my possession. I am not worried, because those signatures still remain valid. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you see, new signatures can be created that would be fraudulent due to the broken crypto system, but old signatures remain secure as long as they were in a secure place and stored securely and time-stamped. Do you see? Time-stamping for signatures is going to be very, very important. Right? But where secrecy, there is no such thing. You could have encrypted something for me. I could put it in a basement and surrounded by, you know, dogs and guards and whatever. It doesn't matter. If somebody recorded our communication, they will record now, decrypt later.
Let's have this scenario, which is very unlikely, but maybe in 5-10 years could be a thing, as you mentioned, where all the encryption based on this mathematical assumption that two large prime numbers can be factored in one way and not the other way, because after all, it just boiled down to that, right?
Right.
Way. So
well, that and a few other
things, of course, but that kind of like really the core of the current encryption scheme.
Right. There's what you're referring to is the RSA modulus, right? The factoring of a large composite number in its two primes.
Exactly.
That when multiplied may give you that composite, or taking what's called a discrete log of a number in a particular what's called field or group. But and those problems are indeed in danger of being not problems anymore, right? Or not hard problems. They're problems, but they're not hard problems. That's and that's why many entities, including NIST and others, of course, in Europe, are looking at and have seriously looked at alternatives. I'm not so familiar with the European landscape in terms of
much less.
But I imagine every sizable country probably has some standardization body similar to NIST that recommends alternatives for post-quantum cryptography. NIST is, of course, the biggest gorilla in the world in this space, and everybody likes to listen to NIST because they invest a lot of money and effort and manpower, and they have already done quite a bit of work. I see that they have at least 4, I think, what's called the recommended post-quantum techniques.
Well, what is emerging through these interviews is that those post-quantum techniques are out there, but they are very new. So we don't know how secure they are yet. And also there is a question of implementation. We don't know how long it will take to update the all systems, everything out there,
That's right.
including hardware that is much slower.
That is true. That is true. And there are people, not me, but people smarter or different expertise than me who are busy working on designing specialized hardware, because some of these techniques use lattice operations, and those are very particular, very peculiar, different from the normal, what we call large number arithmetic that is underlying other current public key crypto systems. Then the coding-based public key post-quantum, claim to be post-quantum. The coding-based public key technique also has some very special, at its very base, computational requirements. So maybe new hardware can be designed to speed up those operations, right? Because, and what's interesting is you bring up this issue with people have not looked at them in great detail. That is true, and with one exception, only one exception, these techniques, the post-quantum techniques that I've seen, are based on mathematical problems, such as learning with errors or some coding issues. I don't know enough about it to say anything definitive, but they're all based on some mathematical problems. I believe these problems have not been studied enough in the context of quantum computing. Right. Maybe when they are studied as deeply as other problems that we are facing today, it will be found out that they are also vulnerable. Maybe not as badly, maybe not as blatantly, but it's quite possible. Because quantum computing makes lots of mathematical problems, or believed to be hard problems in the non-quantum world, it makes them easier to solve in the quantum world. Yeah. And I said one exception because there is one technique, I think it's called XWSS or something like that. It's based on hash functions. It's a signature scheme that is blessed by NIST. And it's based only on hash functions. And hash functions are a whole different universe. There are no hard mathematical problems there. So it's much less likely that a quantum breakthrough will result in breaking of, let's say, hash-based techniques. Yeah. But they do not provide encryption. They only provide signatures.
Yeah. And by the way, also hash scheme was actually cracked not a long time ago. So actually,
specific scams.
One was even created by the NSA. Do you remember that one?
Yes. I mean, the hash schemes are not impregnable. They are designed by very, very skilled people who have a completely different set of skills from those who design this more traditional or more mathematical cryptosystem. These are people who design hash functions generally come from the world of symmetric cryptography, which is more of an art than a science. I think there are very few people that are capable of doing that. But what the NIST scheme that I'm referring to, signature scheme based on hashes, it does not specify a specific hash function. It is a generic scheme where you can plug in any believed to be secure hash function and play with its length and depth and whatever. So it's not like the scheme is good. That particular scheme is good. I believe it's not likely to be full because of quantum breakthroughs. A particular hash function that underlies it might be insecure, but then you can plug in a different one. Or as many people would suggest, including me, if you're really worried about vulnerability of a specific hash function you're using, use 2. I mean, I didn't come up with this simple idea. It's been around for a long time. It's called hedging. You hedge on the fact that in case one of them falls down, you're still okay. It's like saying having a spare parachute, as you're jumping out of the plane. You can use it for encryption. So if you have a message to send me or a document to encrypt for somebody, you could just encrypt it twice using two very different encryption schemes with two very different keys.
We do need to try and try again to break those codes, those systems.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a healthy ecosystem. In a healthy ecosystem, you need essentially both predators and non-predators. And to make this sort of a silly analogy, you need people who attack, not just people who defend. Now you don't want, and there should be a balance between the two in this community, in this scientific community. If everybody just attacks and nobody defends, what do you have? I mean, just a bunch of scavengers, right? I mean, if everybody's building new systems and nobody's attacking them, then that's not healthy, right? Because what is the criteria for showing security, right? How do you know? A lot of times these schemes, they come with proofs, some kind of proofs of security or claimed properties, right? And what constitutes a proof really varies from piece to piece, right? And from place to place. These proofs sometimes are convincing, sometimes less so. Sometimes they're very mathematical and very precise, and sometimes they're very wishy-washy and more hand-wavy. Or they're based on they're very, very precise, but they're based on very unsubstantiated assumptions.
Right.
So that's why you need people who attack those. Okay, and sometimes very surprising results come out. So I think we need a healthy ecosystem there.
Yeah. I mean, I would say we break it to protect it.
Absolutely. I am very much, of course, cognizant of this looming danger. I think the biggest problem we face today is that we do not have a scheme, a post-quantum secure scheme or claimed secure scheme that is not based on mathematical problem that can be, in principle, attacked by quantum technology. I kind of referenced this before, earlier in our conversation. That is, we have, for example, a scheme for digital signatures that is based on hash functions. Okay, but we do not have an encryption scheme based on hash functions. If we had, I would sleep better at night.
Well, we mentioned the one of NIST, but they are not proven to be...
Right, they are still based on mathematical problems. And remember, we discussed how these problems have not received enough scrutiny yet. Right, the other problems, the RSA problem, the factoring the composite number, the taking a discrete log, these have been studied and scrutinized for 40, 50 years. The lattice problems, or the coding problems underlying these other newer, more exotic crypto systems that are sort of blessed by NIST, they have not been studied for as long or as deeply. At least I suspect they haven't been. So more attention needs to be paid to those. Compared to the Y2K problem. Now you're probably too young to. But maybe you've heard it.
That case.
Yeah, but I think this is night and day. Oh, the Y2K problem was always had there's always a good possibility that there was an empty bubble, that there was no substance in the Y2K problem, that there was a lot of scaremongering and so on. Well, this is not one of those problems. Yeah. This is not an empty bubble. Yeah. There is a real and present danger. I mean, real and present, not exactly right now, this day, but we have to prepare for what's coming. Yeah. And it is coming.
This is huge.
Yeah. And another distinction is that with Y2K, we knew exactly when it was going to happen. And here with quantum, we don't. We don't have that luxury. It can happen tomorrow. That's right. That's right. Or 10 years from now.
Even 10 years is a
minute. Right. It is. It is. Indeed. Indeed.
But let's suppose that tomorrow someone out there, or maybe someone in this department, in this university, comes to you and say, look, I figured how to solve this problem of the two prime numbers factoring. and you and that person is the only ones that know about it, what would you do? Because there is all this question, like, it's such a big thing, it's such a critical thing.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Well, what would I do? I guess I could say hypothetically there's something that a researcher should do as something that an ethical person should do. And maybe there's a kind of an overlap between the two. I mean, the researcher first, when they discover something like that, the first impulse is to, let's write a paper, right? Let's get some PR and write a paper and get a lot of accolades. But ethics dictates that you shouldn't just do that. There's something called the responsible disclosure process. And the responsible disclosure process would dictate or mandate treading very carefully, right, and slowly, meaning contacting, let's say, perhaps NIST in that case, and saying, well, we have the following issue. Now, NIST may not be interested because they don't standardize RSA, right? We're talking about RSA in this example. May want to approach major vendors that use that technique, that sell products, and say, look, here's some notice for you. We're not going to publish anything. We'll embargo our results for some months, maybe longer, and give you a chance to update your products.
Right. Although that's such a big thing that might stay in embargo for years. And what is the scenario where someone else discovered the same thing, the same breakthrough, let's say with quantum computing, somewhere else, maybe in China or?
Well, then it becomes essentially what we call zero-day exploit, which is zero-day means nobody knows about it. And then that means that if a malicious entity, of course, malicious here is depending on which side you are on, right? A malicious entity could clearly take advantage to their benefit and start, I don't know, decrypting communication, forging signatures, and maybe causing chaos.
Yeah. Well, probably if you have that power, you want to keep it secret for a while.
That's what is intuitive for me, right? Is that, yeah, you would want to keep it secret for a while. Because the moment you release it, cat is out of the bag. And I mean, there may be some mayhem as a result, but there will be remedies eventually. Whereas if you keep it quiet, you clearly are winning, right?
Do you see any other ethical issues around quantum computing, always related to the power of computing and intercepting communication or breaking codes?
Well, I suspect there are many ethical issues around this, but most of them are not specific to quantum. I don't think quantum by itself, the advances in quantum by themselves, bring up anything specifically that is unique to quantum. But given the speed with which technology seems to advance, the quantum technology seems to advance, if I was a person working directly on that side, I would be very cognizant of like, oh, well, we reached a benchmark today. We can break standard TLS, web servers public key in 5 hours. Oh my God, that's a big piece of news, right? So that requires treading carefully and disclosing responsibly.
Right.
You cannot just, it would be undesirable to just like trumpet it from the rooftops and just make it public knowledge immediately, because that is likely to cause a lot of chaos.
Yeah, literally.
A lot of problems.
Yeah, also because
Panic even.
panic, yeah, damage. Also because maybe we relied on the same technology for too much and for too long. I mean, it was a safe technology, but there was also the possibility to use maybe symmetric encryption, so without the public key. That at this point maybe would have been a safer option.
Symmetric encryption, interesting to mention it. I mean, it is also not immune to advances in quantum. It's just that with symmetric encryption, you need to essentially kind of like enlarge your keys. So if your key was, for symmetric encryption, used to be, I don't know, 160 or 128 bits, then you want to be safe from quantum, you should at least double it. So it just means that encryption becomes a bit more expensive, the keys become longer, but it's still the same symmetric encryption. You don't fundamentally change. You see the difference? Like with public key, we need to fundamentally change the algorithms that we're using. With symmetric encryption, if we're using a secure symmetric encryption scheme today, the advent of the improvements in quantum technology don't make us throw away this encryption system and change it to a different one. They force us to change the key sizes.
If the size is still a thing.
Well, as they say, size matters. And here, size matters a lot with symmetric crypto, yes.
Well, I am talking though about not much about the quantum computing, but about the math problem. If that problem is not a problem anymore, any size of any key doesn't
That's correct.
Well,
I don't know if I would go that far, but indeed, when the problem becomes what used to be what we call intractable or computationally hard, suddenly becomes tractable, you need to throw away your algorithm and switch to a different algorithm. Like, you don't lose these composites and primes, you don't use RSA anymore, but you switch to, I say, coding-based encryption scheme or lattice-based encryption scheme. You see, we completely changed the algorithm. Whereas if you and I are using today some advanced encryption standard that is standardized by NIST, AES-3, whatever, we don't need to change that algorithm. We just need to double our key sizes.
right.
And to give NIST some credit, they actually have thought about these things. The algorithms that they standardize for symmetric encryption are pretty flexible as far as what's called block sizes and key sizes. Block sizes means how much you encrypt at a time, and key sizes, how big is your secret key or symmetric key.
I don't know if you are familiar or you heard anything about the blockchain and especially the cryptocurrency schemes that are also vulnerable.
I've heard of it. To be fair, I don't know very much. I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrencies, so I stay away from those. But I would imagine that if they do rely on public key technology, and some definitely do, especially, I think it's not the fundamental blockchains. The blockchain itself is essentially a hash function based structure, so it's not going to fall down as a result. I mean, it's no more than a regular hash function would. But crypto wallets are protected using Diffie-Hellman, RSA, etc. The same techniques were used in TLS and IPsec. So yes, they will be vulnerable. So it's not the fundamental scheme, but it's at least the end user's wallets. Their protection will be impacted.
Yeah, we have been talking also to some of the Bitcoin community. They are trying to take steps, but apparently it's much harder than
because so distributed, right? It's not controlled by one organization. There are all these clearing houses and exchanges, right? And
and upgrade the wallets,
right.
The signatures take long times.
Right. And I'm not sure. Again, pardon my ignorance, but I don't know if there exists a standardization body or some kind of governing body that can standardize things. If there was, they maybe could do something.
NIST is working particularly in the United States. Do you imagine another organization out there that is not founded by the US government and hopefully works more internationally in probably the technology field that would come up with a standard and would make everyone agree on this potential post-quantum cryptography?
Okay, I see what you mean. So IEEE in principle could. I don't think they will. I think the body that governs the internet, or more or less governs may be a strong word, called IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force. It's a large and very loose body of technologists from all over the world that meets 3-4 times a year. And they have what's called working groups. So it's a standardization body, but it's not controlled by any national entity or political. It's an independent body. It has been around since the 1980s, since almost the birth of the internet. It used to be very small, and then it grew, and now it's huge, and it has numerous what's called working groups. And these working groups are tasked with very specific things. So there's, like, say, a working group that deals with, like, how packets are formatted on the internet, IP, Internet Protocol. There's TCP, there's Transmission Control Protocol. There's stuff that that secures the web communication, TLS, SSL TLS. Maybe you've heard of it. It's the one that puts a little lock on your browser when you see it, or when you see something starting with HTTPS.
Right.
That's what secures your browser to server communication. Right. They standardize these protocols. When you use a VPN, for example, chances are you're using one of their protocols, maybe TLS, maybe what's called IPsec, and there's a working group on that, right? And so they have very compartmentalized working groups. People who participate in those run the whole gamut of, like, academics, government, independent consultants, industry players. So it's a whole like a whole zoo of different types of people. And the idea is that no one segment of society kind of dominates it. Whether it actually is true in all cases, I can't say, but the idea is that there should be a mix of people, and no one entity should dictate the standards for the internet. Now, among other things, they don't actually standardize cryptographic algorithms, these very basic cryptographic algorithms like post-quantum techniques, but they standardize their use, kind of like how they are used. So they have some influence, or I would say a lot of influence.
About the ownership of this post-quantum cryptography system, but also networks. So let's say that someone create a network secure, post-quantum secure network. Is that something that should be public, can stay private? Also, I mean, from the scientific community, mostly the answers are no, it should be part of the scientific discovery tools that we can use. But in the experience you might have in the industry, but also in general, how does it work? I mean, for new algorithms, or even breaking codes that break encryption scheme, can be patented, can be...
They can be. RSA itself was patented for 17 years, and it's I forget, it's mid-2000s when the patent finally expired. Many schemes were patented. New schemes can be patented. I think NTRU may have been patented. This is one of the latest base schemes. But there's a difference. Patenting a scheme basically means that you own the rights, and sometimes government patents. But government patents only not to charge people money for the use of the scheme. They do it so that nobody else can patent it and claim that they invented it. You see what I mean? I believe that, like, the DSA, digital citizenship algorithm from the 1990s, was actually patented by the US government, but they never really enforce any kind of patent rights, in a sense that they don't charge people for using it. Of course, companies can do the same, but generally they patent because they expect revenue. Patenting in and of itself is not a huge problem, except that it inhibits standardization. So if a organization like NIST wanted to standardize a patented algorithm, that my semi-educated guess is they will ask the company to essentially allow royalty-free use. So you can still have a patent if you patented it, but you cannot charge royalty if you want it to be part of the government's blessed standard. Now, the first part of your question was different. You said if you invent something and you keep it secret, you invent some post-quantum resistant or quantum resistant scheme and keep it secret, that's generally a bad idea, as you probably heard from other people, because fundamentally in security there's the concept of open design and closed design. And open design says when you have any kind of protocol or cryptographic technique, the only thing that should be secret are the keys, or key, depending. Everything else must be public.
Right. Yeah.
So you allow that everybody else to scrutinize your algorithm. If you keep your algorithm secret, usually, not always, of course, I have no idea if it's always the case, but often it is historically the case that somebody reverse engineers it and breaks it. And typically homegrown custom algorithms, the history is littered with examples of homegrown custom algorithms that people thought were secure and kept them in-house, protected, and didn't disclose. And in the end, they were weak and broken.
Yeah. Well, that's another side question about having them open or close as a system. And but you did answer my question about the ownership and patenting. So probably we shouldn't allow companies to patent post-quantum algorithms, because then we have to pay to use those.
That's a high bar. I mean, that's I see where that's a valid opinion. That's a reasonable opinion. But in practice, it might be hard because I'm not a legal scholar, but it might be difficult to justify disallowing patents. I mean, there was a time when genomic patents had issues. If you recall, maybe 20 years ago or so, there were a lot of court battles about patenting genomic sequences. That was thought to be weird and unusual, but in the end, I think they do allow it today. And then there's a history of going back to maybe even 19th century of patent offices in various places issuing patents for encryption for cryptographic algorithms. So it would be kind of weird if they said, "Oh, we'll issue a patent on any cryptographic algorithm as long as it's not post-quantum."
Right. Yeah.
So it may be a nice thing to have, but it's more of a wishful thinking.
Yeah, but you made the example of the U.S. government patenting an algorithm to make it public, to keep it public.
Yes, yes, indeed. So there's logic to it, right? They're not there to make money. They're there to make sure that this remains free. But in that case, this is a bit historical knowledge there that I'm not very sure of. I believe in that case, they patented because they created it. Whereas today, NIST does not actually create algorithms. They bless them.
Right.
They scrutinize them to death. They analyze them. They stretch them. They bend them. They put their feet to the fire, but they don't create new ones. That's why they wouldn't patent anything, right? They just say, this is the algorithm submitted by these people, whatever that group may be, not always US. There are several cryptographic algorithms blessed by NIST that are originated outside the United States, which is totally normal. But those people who submit candidates for NIST evaluation, they are not allowed to patent it.